Hey everybody, we thought we'd put together a quick little video on a bit of a season recap, thoughts on the Emperor Foundation, and what we'd like to see in the coming season. Figured this was a good time, seeing as we got a new cutscene, we're really close to finishing the Emperor Foundation, so let's dive right into it. This past season was Season of the Dawn, and our thoughts on it are pretty positive. I know Babe was not too thrilled with how much Vex offensive she had to play, and this season seemed a lot, not necessarily easier, but definitely less tedious. And speaking of the season activity, we got the Sundial with Season of Dawn, and personally, I think that the reward system for that was pretty good. You could get a lot of 5 weapons from one run, which didn't really take that long. Unfortunately, we've had almost the same kind of activity, starting with Menagerie to Vex Offensive, and then now with the Sundial. So not too much variety there as far as just wave-based, do the activity stuff, kill the thing, stand on the plates, that kind of stuff. But we did get an amazing dungeon, and I really enjoy the dungeon. It's really well put together, really cool aesthetic, really cool boss fight. Adds in a couple new mechanics that we hadn't seen before. And we got a cool raid, which arguably, I'm pretty sure Babe shares my sentiment that it's our favorite raid from Destiny 2. However, there are a lot of downsides as well. In general, the pinnacle gear seems somewhat pointless. You don't really need to get above 960 because the artifact level will level you up, and all you're really getting light level for is to make the pinnacle activities easier, which give you pinnacle gear. So seems like a bit of a fruitless loop there, especially with the artifact perks also seem redundant, as each season you're going to see different anti-barrier, different unstoppable weapons, different whatever the third one is, and it just feels like unnecessary swapping, forceful swapping, to switch it up, which doesn't feel all that gratifying. And on top of that, the gear system that we got with Gear 2.0 seems to be showing a bunch of its flaws, i.e. high stat rolls are quite rare. Thankfully, this season they gave us guaranteed high stat rolls in the seasons past, which was good. However, upcoming changes to affinities will probably fix a lot of our issues with Gear 2.0, where you can't change the elemental affinity. So with the coming season, you'll be able to. However, it sounds like if you have a fully upgraded Masterwork piece, you're going to have to use 3 enhancement prisms, 1 ascendant shard, and a bunch of enhancement cores and other materials just to swap that affinity. So we're not 100% sure how that's going to work. I guess we'll see in the new season. The other thing that has gotten a bit stale is the PvP meta, and we're seeing that with a large drop in PvP players. Unfortunately, right now, it's been a little stale, even though there are a lot of different things you can use. There's also a lot of the general Destiny cheesiness that comes with having all these crazy guns, which is fine because that's what Destiny is, but I find that the increase of different exotics throughout the game's lifetime makes it worse and worse the longer the game goes on, as a lot of the strong exotics change playstyle so drastically that it doesn't feel all that good to encounter all these different playstyles, even though technically that's a break from the meta. I feel like Destiny has always kind of been on the tipping point when it comes to stale meta or too cheesy. So moving on to the most current situation we have for the community to solve, which is the Emperor Foundation. And overall, I think they did a really good job with this it really brings a lot of different people together and makes everyone feel included, because everyone can do their part and do a little bit, and that every little bit will count towards that total. So even if you donated 100 Fractaline, you can say, well, without that 100, we never would have made it. But there are a few issues with it. First of all, it takes approximately like 3 to 5 seconds just to donate 100. And I did the math on the 10 billion-ish, just under 10 billion Fractaline that we need to donate. And that is 15.8 years of time spent by players holding X. I mean, that's assuming that PC doesn't have just a click, but maybe they have to hold the click down. I'm not sure. I haven't actually seen that. But regardless, it does take a long time to do this. However, you do have the upside of leveling up your time loss bounties and getting a lot of weapon frames for essentially free, and converting that Glimmer and Fractaline into enhancement cores or god rolls or whatever you need. The one thing that 100% this does really well is build the hype. And unfortunately, if what gets unlocked by Empyrean Foundation does not live up to the hype, then we might have a big problem. And everyone and their mother thinks it's Trials, and I really hope it is. No confirmed yet, but that is the buzz. If it's not Trials, I think we might have a problem. And to clarify on that, speaking of it better be Trials, what I mean by that is not necessarily that it has to be Trials of Osiris, 3v3 elimination with a lighthouse and 7 wins gets you flawless. However, I really feel it should be a Trials equivalent activity. And by that, I mean something as engaging, PvP-wise, rewarding, and have the same allure as going to the lighthouse in Destiny 1. So we can only hope for that, and we'll see when we hit the 9.7 repeating until the last 2 zeros billion Fractaline required. But I'm going to put my money on Trials. Now, looking forward to the coming season, before we get into what we'd like to see for the sandbox, very quickly, I think that Pinnacle rewards need to be changed a little bit. And by Pinnacle rewards, not only Pinnacle gear, but Ascendant shards and enhancement prisms. Those are a big thing, and right now the only way to get those is the Ascendant shards. The only way to get those is the Master Nightfall. Enhancement prisms you can actually get a decent amount just by running the dungeon, but that's like one activity, and with Nightfalls I guess you could say 2, which really isn't much. But as far as what we want to see PvP wise and sandbox in general, I think we really need a refreshing update. A lot of the things have gone on too long without being touched, and I know the elephant in the room is that Erentil. And I think personally all that needs to be done is move the damage floor. So if you don't know, the damage floor is the absolute lowest that damage fall off due to range is going to drop the damage down, and the minimum for Erentil with no accelerated coils or liquid coils is 36 per bolt, which if you hit enough, which is even less than 7 still, you get a kill. That pushes Erentil's range out to pulse rifle range, and I think that definitely needs to be looked at. Just drop it down, make it, I don't know, a nice number that's not that high. Secondly, the other elephant in the room, yes there's 2, is hunters. And as a hunter main, I definitely think that hunters need to be looked at just a little bit. There's way too many of them because it's just way too easy to use, and on console all you need to do is jump above the enemy and it's hard for them to find you, and you have a dodge to get out of a lot of things. And that's, I think, the main thing. You can't really change too much about how they move, but the dodge definitely needs to be looked at, and I don't think that's a very hard solution. The fact that it gets you out of tracking nades and you can stack mobility to get it down to a 9-second cooldown is kind of ridiculous. So we'll see if anything changes there. Another thing that needs to be changed is hand cannons. 140s and 110s right now really don't have a place very much. A little more so on PC, but on console, there's really just no use to them. You may as well just use a 150 because the range difference just really isn't that much. which I understand why they did, but we'll see if those get touched because you don't really see many 140s or 110s in the Crucible at the moment. And another thing that I believe may benefit from a little bit of tweaking is bows. Personally, I don't think they should double body shot. One head, one body is fine. And I think it should take 2 headshots to kill someone, or 1 headshot, 1 body, depending on the archetype. The double body with the bow just seems a little bit too easy to do, and when I was thinking about it, I think the problem is that when you use a bow properly, you're playing super safe. You're not letting that arrow go until you're out of cover, and then you're backing back into cover. So the strength ends up also being its best defense. So I don't know if they're going to get touched. I don't see too many people talking about them, but personally I think that would benefit from a change. Another couple quick changes. One I don't think is going to be changed because I believe it's deep-seated in the engine, and that's melee registration. We've all been there when you hit the melee, it makes a sound but doesn't do any damage or just pushes the opponent away. And that affects supers as well. Things like Arc Strider and Sentinel suffer when there's not very good melee registration. Not sure if that's going to change anytime soon, but definitely on the wish list. And the last thing is already something they've announced they're going to change, which is being able to change the elemental affinities of your gear. However, a fully upgraded piece of gear is going to take a lot of materials to change the affinity if we go by what they've said of how it's going to work. So that's about it, guys, and hopefully we get trials soon once we get enough Fractaline, but we'll see you on the other side.